My name is Mariano Mumpower. I'm a senior mechanical engineer with KeyTech, and we're a product development firm in Baltimore. You see my presentation today is titled Rapid Testing Methods to Select the Right Battery Configuration. So what I want to highlight here is the value of collecting data on battery performance as early as possible in the concept generation and de-risking process of any new connected device technology. And I'll do that by talking about a case example of what we've done in the past for a client who tasked us with inventing a new connected sensing device for a drug delivery platform. First, though, I'll tell you a little bit about KeyTech and how our experience allows us to approach combination product and drug delivery technology projects. We pride ourselves on our creative and interdisciplinary teams and the variety of projects we work on within the medical device industry. From hospital equipment like X-ray carts and surgical equipment to pharmacy and laboratory instruments like compounder pump systems and automated diagnostic platforms, to drug delivery devices like automated injectors or disposable transfer sets, we combine the principles of user-centric design with rapid innovation and engineering methods to uncover elegant solutions to tough challenges. So now let's get into the battery topic and focus on how important it is to build confidence in a battery selection for your connected device. On the one hand, there are many available chemistries, form factors, and arrangements out there to choose from. And on the other, you have a number of application-specific requirements and constraints like size, power draw, use case, and business models that influence what is acceptable. Finding the right battery to meet those needs requires exploration and feasibility assessment, which must include empirical testing on the bench to characterize those battery options and evaluate performance firsthand. The reason we advocate for early benchtop testing data is because the battery performance will likely not be easy to predict. Connected device designs are implementing more sensors, more actuators, more user interface and wireless chipset components into increasingly smaller packages to enable complex functionality with streamlined usability for the at-home patient user. This means more power is expected from a battery within a more confined form factor, and often requires pushing the limits of what any battery can do. At this limit, we find that data sheets and performance curves don't tell the whole story, and every application becomes unique. So, to describe that uniqueness with an example, I'll share a little bit about what we've done for a client in the past. The engagement consisted of exploring new sensing technologies and device designs to enable data collection from an existing auto-injector style delivery platform. As we started to come up with concepts, we worked with the client to define the success criteria for the product and identified requirements that would pose a significant power challenge for any device. These requirements included first, having a pre-installed fixed battery arrangement. That means the battery would have to work for the life of the device without recharging or replacement. And this was based on marketing and usability needs for a successful future product. Second, we had to allow for a wide variety of device use frequency and durations. So from daily injections or once a week, which would only take a couple seconds, or to only once a month, but maybe a longer delivery. So that battery would have to support that variability in use case for an entire year without any performance loss. And third, we had to ensure that the device fit within a defined envelope based on human factors research. So we had a limited space that we could work in for the battery. So having outlined that challenge and then having some early concepts to examine, we had to find answers to important questions that would inform viability of any of the concepts we had. Are there any batteries out there that can meet those requirements while providing the power that the devices need? How long would they last? These were not easy questions to answer based on the data sheets alone, but could not be ignored even at the early concept phase. So we executed a rapid testing approach to learn as much about any suitable batteries and how they would perform with our concepts. This approach helped us gain valuable insights, narrow the field of options, and build confidence quickly. So what did that testing actually look like? Since we were so early in the concept phase for the sensing technology, we didn't have any actual devices or even prototype PCBs to test. Instead, we created a fleet of breadboards using readily available components and development boards that could simulate the various power draw and use case conditions to challenge any battery configuration that would work. So with the low cost and flexibility of these breadboard test setups, we were able to test many configurations at the same time and automate that data collection to be able to run many sequences of extended life cycle tests easily, and then go back and crunch the data later. The details of what that automated test bench was doing is relatively simple, but it needed to be executed efficiently to collect meaningful data in time for a fast-moving concept exploration phase of our project. Based on some power consumption calculations for the concept electronics, we identified a worst-case current draw during use, and then were able to set that using a load adjustment on our test bench. And then the microcontroller was then programmed to cycle that load on and off on a duty cycle we defined. The on time that we used was defined by the use case requirement, so a worst case estimation of how long an injection might take. But the off time to use had to be found iteratively since we had to balance the needs of collecting data quickly against the performance impacts of battery recovery time. A short off time would allow us to complete tests faster, but would not be representative of real-world use and would decrease battery life significantly, leading us to draw the wrong conclusions. But a long off time was more representative and would allow for more battery recovery, but would cause a single battery test to potentially take weeks. So with that compromise sort of balanced and establishing a load cycle, we were able to move forward and do this testing. What happens during that load on and off time is that a parallel process on the controller is sampling voltage and current monitoring components from the breadboard, and then performing calculations about battery health and the number of cycles reached, and sending this out to a data log file. That output would help us understand the behavior of the battery during load on and load off times over the course of thousands of cycles, and define how many cycles a battery would be expected to last.
Mariano, I'm just going to say, I'll let you wrap up. Have a great rest of your session, and we're going to begin in about a minute the next set of breakouts. So thank you again, Mariano.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'll go quickly here through some key insights from that test effort. You'll see on the battery side, what we learned is that we would have not been able to predict the life cycles for the batteries we tested based on just the data sheets alone, because in our application, the relationship between voltage, current draw, and capacity were nonlinear, and we could not have extrapolated the life cycles without the real-world data. Another interesting finding for the battery was that as opposed to having a larger single cell or multiple cells in parallel to get more capacity, we actually found in this application having smaller batteries stacked in series gave us an increase in lifetime despite having less capacity on paper. Lastly, another important finding on the battery was even for a given battery chemistry or size, performance of individual batteries varied across manufacturers significantly, particularly in their starting voltages, voltage sag under load, and recovery behavior during off time. All of that points to the need to test empirically early so that you know whether you have a viable battery that can supply your device the power needs. On the hardware side, a few learnings were that LEDs for any sort of optical-based sensing technology are going to be the dominant power draw. And if you're going to lower the illumination current, you need to be careful to make sure that you can still get the performance out of the sensors that you need. And finally, on the software side, wake-up features are important so that you can minimize power draw by putting the device into a sleep state to minimize what you need and how long you're in a measurement mode. So thank you all for your time. I hope you guys found some valuable information about testing batteries early in concept work, and consider reaching out to us for any help with your tough design challenges. Thank you.